When I first drove through the tree-lined streets of Rosewood Creek, I thought I'd finally found safety. The moving truck rumbled behind me as I followed the curved roads past white fences, trimmed hedges, and kids playing on perfect lawns. It was exactly what the brochure had promised, a peaceful HOA community just outside Nashville, quiet enough for healing and secure enough for someone like me, a single mom raising a disabled daughter alone. My daughter, Lila, sat in the passenger seat beside me, her small hands folded in her lap. She didn't speak much these days. Her voice had grown quieter ever since the accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her legs lay covered in a soft pink blanket, and her eyes, large and ocean blue, scanned the passing houses. She looked hopeful, but tired, a fragile bird still too afraid to fly. "This is it, baby," I whispered. "We're home." She didn't smile, not fully, but I saw her exhale, a moment of relief. That was enough. We were assigned Lot 16, a charming single-story ranch with gray shutters, a small ramp at the front entrance, and an HOA-approved garden out front. The house came cheap, almost suspiciously cheap, but I chalked it up to luck, divine intervention, or maybe just karma finally giving me a break after years of struggle. The first person to greet us was Karen. I remember her vividly: tall, tan hair in a tight blonde bun, crisp white tennis skirt, and that plastic-perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Welcome to Rosewood. I'm Karen Withers, HOA president. You must be Amelia and Lila?" Her eyes flicked down to the wheelchair. "Oh, how brave." I smiled politely. "Yes, we're really glad to be here." Karen extended a hand that felt like cold steel. "We take pride in this community. Clean lawns, quiet evenings, and above all, respect for the rules." The way she said rules sent a chill up my spine, but I ignored it. That evening, as I unpacked dishes in the kitchen, Lila rolled herself around the living room, laughing at the way her voice echoed off the empty walls. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh in months. I remember standing frozen, letting the sound wash over me like sunlight through storm clouds. The next morning, there was a note taped to our mailbox. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Please ensure trash bins are stored out of sight after collection. HOA compliance notice number 1." I hadn't even unpacked the trash bins yet. I brushed it off. Karen was probably just being thorough. This was a tightly run community, and I wasn't about to make waves. But the notices didn't stop. Within the first week, I received 5 more. One for inappropriate lawn gnome placement, a tiny butterfly ornament Lila insisted on placing, another for visible wheelchair ramp without proper HOA approval, and even one claiming that Lila's crying at night had been disruptive to neighbors' sleep quality. That one hurt. Lila rarely cried. And when she did, she tried to be quiet about it. But the pain in her spine sometimes got unbearable, especially at night when her body stiffened from the cold. I called the HOA office and asked for clarification. Karen answered directly. "Oh, Amelia," she said sweetly, "it's nothing personal. We just try to maintain peace. You understand, don't you? Some of our residents are sensitive. This is a trauma-informed neighborhood." Trauma-informed? That was a new one. Weeks passed. Every time I tried to talk to other neighbors, they smiled, waved, but never spoke beyond small talk. One woman, Bethany from Lot 12, opened her mouth once to say something but glanced toward Karen, who stood watching from across the street, and immediately went silent. Something was wrong here. Then came the first incident. Lila's wheelchair was left outside for just 5 minutes while I carried in groceries. When I came back out, one of the wheels had been loosened. Not completely detached, just enough that if she had used it, it would have collapsed mid-roll. I confronted Karen immediately. "That's a serious accusation," she said, sipping from a mason jar of green juice. "Maybe you should be more careful where you leave expensive equipment. Accidents happen." There was no proof, no cameras, nothing to file a complaint with. The next week, our welcome mat was set on fire. That one was harder to explain. The fire was small, controlled, as if someone had used accelerant only in the center. A local fire marshal was called, and Karen stood by as they inspected the scene. "Could be kids," she offered, "or maybe someone seeking attention." That night, Lila asked me, Mom, are we cursed? I hugged her tightly. No, baby. We're just in the wrong place. But I'll fix it. But I was wrong. I wasn't in the wrong place. I was in the lion's den. 2 nights later, Lila woke up screaming. Her window was open, though I was sure I'd closed it. On the windowsill, a photo I didn't recognize. It was of Lila sitting in her wheelchair, taken from behind, as if someone had stood in the woods behind our yard with a zoom lens. Its edges were singed. I called the police. They arrived, took a report, and shrugged. Could be a prank. Nothing actionable unless someone's physically harmed. Physically harmed. I began installing security cameras the next day. That's when the letters started arriving. Not emails, letters. Typed, no return address. Each one colder than the last. You are a blight on this community. She cries too much. Your daughter is lowering the value of our property. No one wants a freak show next door. Lila never saw them. I burned them before she could. I considered leaving, packing it all up, cutting my losses. But we had no money, no job yet, and I was tired, so damn tired of running. I couldn't uproot Lila again. Not after everything. So I stayed. I shouldn't have. One night, around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps. I bolted upright and ran to Lila's room. Empty. The window open again. Panic exploded in my chest. I ran outside screaming her name. The yard was empty. No wheelchair. No sign of her. And then I saw it. A single strand of hair, Lila's, lying on the grass beneath the oak tree, burnt at the end. And beside it, an HOA notice stapled to the tree. Final warning. Remove disruptive elements or we will. The cold hit first. It snuck under Lila's skin like a needle made of frost, waking her with a jolt. Her eyes opened, but there was no light. Only blackness, thick and wet, like breathing inside a cave. She reached out blindly with trembling hands. The walls were rough. Wood. Old. Splintering wet in some places. She tried to move her legs, but of course, nothing. Her spine screamed with tension, her body stiff from how long she'd been unconscious. Her fingers slid across dirt and old straw beneath her. A shed. That's where she was. A shed. But why? She remembered being in bed, the soft hum of her nightlight, her mother's kiss on her forehead. And then nothing. A sharp smell. Like vinegar and glue. Something pressed to her face. She had been taken. A thin scream escaped her throat, weak and hoarse. No one answered. She cried out again, louder. Still silence. She sobbed quietly in the darkness, body aching. Her fingers found the corner of what felt like a broken crate, and she dragged herself forward, inch by inch. There was no wheelchair here, no light, no windows. Suddenly, a beam of white slashed through the darkness. A flashlight. A silhouette filled the crack in the shed door. Still crying came the voice. Sweet, mocking, feminine. Karen. The flashlight blinded Lila for a moment. She turned her face away, shielding her eyes with the back of her hand. Guess your mother didn't teach you how to be quiet, Karen said, clicking her tongue. You screamed the whole neighborhood awake last week. Property values are down 4%. That's on you. Lila didn't understand the words. Not all of them. But she understood the hate behind them. It clung to Karen like perfume. Karen slipped a bottle of water inside the shed through the crack in the door. It rolled across the floor and stopped by Lila's hand. You'll get one of those a day. Keep your mouth shut, and I might even let you stretch your legs. Oh, wait. A laugh. Cold and hollow. Then she was gone. Lila didn't touch the water for hours. She just lay there, staring at the dark. Her stomach twisted in knots, her mouth dry as sand. Eventually, thirst won. She drank. Time passed. She didn't know how much. There were no windows. No clocks. Only hunger and cold and the creak of floorboards above her. Someone was always there, watching. On the second day, she heard voices outside the shed. A man, young, nervous. He said something about calling the police. Karen's voice sliced through him like glass. You want to end up like her? Keep your mouth shut, Jacob. This isn't your problem. Then silence. Lila thought of her mother. She knew she was looking. She always did. But no one was coming. Not yet. Maybe not ever. She began marking the time with pebbles she found in the corners, scratching little notches into the floorboards whenever the water bottle came. 5 notches. On the 6th day, she was dragged outside. The sun burned her eyes. She felt the heat like fire on her pale skin. Her body was weaker now. Her arms shook as she tried to sit up. Karen stood over her, dressed in a floral blouse and white gardening gloves. "Time for some fresh air, sweetheart," she said, fake sweet. "Can't have you rotting in there." "Not yet." She dragged Lila's limp body across the yard. The grass stung her skin. She was left near the back fence, under the shade of a tree. For a moment, she just lay there, heart pounding. Then she saw someone watching. A girl. From the next yard. Big brown eyes. Maybe 13. She stared at Lila, then vanished inside her house. Hope sparked. Someone had seen her. Someone would tell. That night, Karen returned in fury. "You little brat," she hissed, grabbing Lila by the collar of her shirt and shaking her. "You waved at her. You think someone's coming for you?" Huh. Lila hadn't waved. She hadn't moved. But Karen didn't care. She shoved Lila back into the shed, harder this time. A sharp edge of wood tore a small gash in her forehead. Blood dripped down her cheek. "I should have let the fire take you the first time," Karen muttered, then slammed the door shut. Fire? What did she mean? What fire? Lila didn't sleep that night. Her head throbbed. Her body ached. She listened, waited, thought. She thought about how happy her mother had been, how the house had felt warm, how for a few days it had almost felt like they could be normal. That dream was over now. Then something changed. On the 8th day, a new sound came through the wall. A knock. Soft. Slow. Then again. Tap, tap, tap. Lila dragged herself toward the wall and tapped back. A voice. "Hey," it whispered. "Are you the girl? The one in the shed?" Lila's throat burned, but she whispered, "Yes." "I'm Jacob. Karen's my mom. I'm sorry. I didn't know she was serious." Lila felt tears spring to her eyes. Someone knew. Someone cared. "I'll help you." "I swear," Jacob whispered. "I just need to figure out how." The tapping stopped. Lila fell asleep to the sound of her own hope. Meanwhile, across the neighborhood, her mother was in hell. Amelia had gone to the police. Repeatedly. They accused her of neglect. Said maybe Lila had run away. Karen told them Amelia had mental health issues and an obsession with fire from a past trauma. Child Protective Services arrived. They searched the house. Found nothing. Karen stood beside the officer on the porch, shaking her head in pity. "It's so tragic," she said. "I just wish I could help." One of the officers pulled Amelia aside. "We've dealt with her before. Are you sure you're okay? You're under a lot of stress. People do desperate things." She was losing her daughter, and the world was blaming her for it. Desperate, Amelia broke into the HOA clubhouse at night. She hacked through the security system with a crowbar. Inside, she found a locked file cabinet full of surveillance tapes. Every property had been recorded. Some had footage going back years. She searched through hours of tape, and there it was. Karen, 3:47 a.m., pulling a wagon. In it, a lump covered in a blanket. Lila's stuffed bear in her lap. She was unconscious. Karen opened the back of a shed, dragged her inside. Amelia dropped the tape and ran. She called 911, sent them the footage. But before help could arrive, she saw it. The shed, engulfed in flames. The orange glow swallowed the night sky. Smoke curled into the stars. Amelia screamed, charging barefoot across the lawn, heart splitting open in her chest. "Lila!" But the heat was too intense. The shed collapsed into a mass of roaring ash and sparks. Firefighters arrived 10 minutes later. Neighbors stood outside in robes, holding phones, whispering. Karen cried, loudly, publicly. "I tried to stop it," she sobbed to the police. She must have knocked over something inside. She was confused. Poor child. The police looked at Amelia with suspicion. "You knew she was in there and didn't tell anyone?" "What? No. I found the footage. You broke into the HOA clubhouse," one officer said, "but Karen took her." It's on tape. Karen held up her phone. She's delusional. I have texts. She threatened to set something on fire last week. She's unwell. The fire chief approached. There were bones, he said. Amelia collapsed to her knees. But what no one knew was that the bones weren't Lila's. They belonged to a dog, placed there by Karen. Lila had been moved hours earlier, dragged through a hidden tunnel beneath the shed and locked into a deeper, older root cellar Karen had discovered years ago during renovations. The walls here were lined with stone. The air was colder, darker, more final. Karen stared down at her now from the edge of the hatch. No one's looking for you now, she said. You're dead. Might as well be. She smiled. Funny thing about ashes. They don't lie. But people lie all the time. She slammed the hatch closed. Above ground, Jacob stared at the flames. He had lied to his mother. He'd told her he destroyed the tunnel. He hadn't. Now, as firefighters cleared the wreckage, Jacob slipped into the woods and ran. He knew where the tunnel ended, deep in the trees behind the community pool. He had to get to her before his mother found out, because she wasn't done yet. The smoke hadn't cleared, but the lies already spread like wildfire. The morning after the shed fire, Rosewood Creek buzzed with sirens, news vans, and quiet murmurs hiding behind lawn sprinklers. The media swarmed the neighborhood like vultures, eager to circle the carcass of a mother's worst nightmare. By sunrise, the headlines were everywhere. HOA, mother's child burned in alleged neglect incident. Was this tragedy preventable? Police say yes. Neighbors speak, she wasn't stable. Amelia sat handcuffed in the back of a patrol car, her wrists red from how tight they'd made the restraints. Her eyes were hollow. Her voice was gone. There was no one left to convince, not when the official report said human remains consistent with a child of Lila's age had been found in the fire. No one cared to verify. No one noticed that the bones were too small. No one asked why Karen had been up at 3:47 a.m. or why the shed had an accelerant trail leading from her garden hose. Instead, Amelia was charged with criminal child endangerment, negligent homicide, and arson suspicion pending investigation. Her tear-soaked screams as she was dragged away were broadcast on 3 local news channels and 1 national feed by noon. She was America's newest villain. A mentally unstable mother who couldn't handle the burden of a disabled child. That was how they framed it. Karen stood proudly in front of her white picket fence, giving interviews, crying into embroidered napkins, calling the event a heartbreaking tragedy for the whole HOA community. She said things like, I tried to help her. I even offered to take Lila when things got hard. She smiled at cameras and handed out lemonade to reporters. No one saw what happened behind her door. No one knew Lila was still alive and trapped. Lila's cell was smaller than the shed. The stone walls wept moisture, and the air smelled like mold and old wood. Her hands trembled when she tried to lift them. Her muscles had wasted away from disuse. Her fingers were raw from clawing at the walls, and her eyes had adjusted to the dark so much that the faintest light from the cracks above made her squint in pain. But she was alive, and Jacob hadn't forgotten her. Every night after Karen took her sleeping pills, he crept through the woods and slipped down through the tunnel. He brought food, bread crusts, crackers, energy bars stolen from a school bag, and whispered updates from the outside world. She thinks you're dead, he said once. The cops do, too. Lila blinked slowly. My mom? Jacob hesitated. They took her. Jail. But she's fighting. That word gave Lila strength. Fighting. Her mother had always fought for rent, for doctors, for therapy for her. She had gotten them out of an abusive apartment, out of the welfare system, out of danger. Now, she was fighting alone. Lila couldn't stay here. She had to escape, but her legs were useless. Her arms barely functioned. All she had was Jacob. So they planned. 1 breath, 1 crumb of bread, 1 inch of strength at a time. In jail, Amelia's mind broke in slow motion. The white walls felt like accusations, the sound of metal doors like mockery. The other inmates either avoided her or pitted her. She didn't speak. She didn't eat much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flames licking her daughter's legs, her voice screaming into an inferno that wouldn't answer. Until one night, a woman approached her in the mess hall. Tall, wiry, deeply scarred across one cheek. Her voice was low and rough. "You're the shed lady," she said. Amelia nodded weakly. "The woman Saturday. I used to live in Rosewood. 5 years ago, before Karen drove me out." Amelia looked up, eyes blinking. "What?" She said. "I didn't fit the aesthetic. My son had epilepsy. He had an episode at the community pool. The next day, she filed 9 HOA violations on me. Within a month, CPS showed up. A month later, I lost my kid." Amelia's heart twisted. "Karen did this before?" "She's been doing it for years. Anyone who doesn't meet her perfect standards. The HOA boards her puppet show. She blackmails them. Records dirt. Some of those houses? She owns shares in them. Real estate scam. She tortures her enemies, just doesn't always use fire." The woman passed her a name. A lawyer. Pro bono. She said only one thing before walking away. "You're not crazy, just trapped in the wrong war." Outside, Jacob found a weakness in the tunnel's end. It exited behind the HOA clubhouse, behind a false wall of vines. The air was cooler there. No one watched, but Lila wasn't strong enough to walk. So Jacob built something, a makeshift wheelchair. He scavenged old bicycle parts, a car seat, and metal bars from a discarded swing set. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't safe. But it moved. Lila cried when she saw it. She mouthed thank you with cracked lips. The night of the escape, the wind was still. The stars were sharp like broken glass in the sky. Jacob pushed her silently through the tunnel. Her body rattled with every bump, her breath shallow. But they moved forward, toward light, toward the end. They surfaced near the old pool house just before dawn. Lila's feet touched dew-covered grass for the first time in weeks. She breathed, and then she whispered, "Mom." Back in jail, Amelia was granted a single 15-minute phone call to the lawyer the woman had given her. His voice was cautious at first, skeptical. But when she mentioned the surveillance tape from the HOA clubhouse, the one where Karen dragged Lila to the shed, his tone changed instantly. "Where is it now?" he asked. "It was taken by the HOA board," she said, "or destroyed." "I'll find it," he promised. And he did. 2 days later, a whistleblower, an HOA treasurer named Larry, sent the footage to the lawyer anonymously. Along with it came scanned internal emails between Karen and multiple board members. One read, "The girl is a liability. We need her gone. If the mother won't leave, we'll force her hand. Start with noise complaints and surveillance, then escalate." Another read, "Keep the cameras pointed at lot 16 until it's handled." Handled. That word would become evidence. The lawyer filed for immediate release. The news caught fire online. A local true crime blogger picked up the story, and within 48 hours, TikTok, Reddit, and YouTube were flooded with posts titled, "Is Rosewood Creek hiding a kidnapping ring? Disabled child declared dead, but no DNA tests done? Karen's HOA horror show. Mother may be innocent. Amelia was released on bond." The court didn't apologize. They never do. She stepped outside into a blinding sea of cameras. She didn't speak, just held up one photo. Lila, alive, somewhere. Meanwhile, Karen knew something was wrong. She hadn't seen Jacob in 2 days. His phone was off. The tunnel hatch had been disturbed. And most damning, her HOA board had stopped answering her calls. She stormed into the HOA clubhouse and found it empty. Her office? Smashed. Files gone. Footage missing. She shrieked. Then she laughed. "They think they can stop me?" She pulled out her phone and called an unknown number. "They're getting close. You know what to do." That night, Jacob hid Lila in an old maintenance shed at the edge of the woods. It wasn't ideal, but it was temporary. The lawyer had promised a full escort out of the neighborhood the next morning. But Karen found them first. Jacob was outside gathering supplies when he heard the sound. A familiar roar. Fire. The shed was on fire. But this time, Lila wasn't inside. Jacob had already moved her minutes earlier to a nearby drainage culvert after spotting Karen's car. Karen stood nearby, holding a gas can and a box of matches. He confronted her, voice shaking. "You're insane." "No, Jacob. I'm a protector. I protect this neighborhood from rot, from pity, from weakness. That girl is broken. And your father was weak too. I won't lose you like I lost him." "You lost him because he left you." Karen slapped him across the face. "Get in the car. Now." But Jacob ran. Straight into the trees. Straight to Lila. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived. Her lawyer had tracked Jacob's phone. GPS led her to the edge of the forest. She ran, heart hammering, until she saw the shape. A small figure in a makeshift wheelchair, covered in ash, bleeding, but breathing. "Mom," Lila croaked. Amelia fell to her knees. They held each other until the sun rose. Karen was arrested the next day. She was dragged from her home screaming about purity and HOA law and fire cleansing. Neighbors watched from their porches, silent, ashamed, some secretly relieved. Inside her home, authorities found blueprints of the neighborhood, surveillance files, blackmail folders on every board member, and a list titled, "Unfit Residents, Remove Before Year-End E." Amelia's name was circled in red. So was Bethany from Lot 12, and 4 others. In the hospital, Lila was treated for severe malnutrition, dehydration, and early signs of pneumonia. But she survived. Barely. Jacob disappeared. The last anyone saw of him was a note left on Amelia's doorstep. "She wasn't just my mother. She was a monster. I'm sorry. I hope Lila can forgive me." He was never seen in Rosewood again. Weeks passed. Karen pled not guilty, claimed she was protecting the neighborhood from dangerous people. The HOA board denied knowledge. But the truth was out. The trial began. Courtrooms are rarely as dramatic as television paints them, except this one. The day Karen Withers finally faced justice, the pews were full, the air thick, and the silence louder than thunder. Reporters filled every corner. True crime podcasters scribbled notes with trembling hands. The HOA board sat in the front row, silent, pale, sweating. They weren't the witnesses. They were the accomplices. Amelia sat beside her lawyer, hands gripping her daughter's blanket, salvaged from the ashes. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Across the courtroom, Karen smirked in her orange jumpsuit as if the world still revolved around her HOA badge. Her eyes locked on Amelia's, not with shame but with defiance. She still believed she would win. She had manipulated her neighbors. She had silenced the board. She had nearly destroyed an innocent child. But what she didn't understand, what she never understood, was the power of a mother's rage once her child is burned and buried alive. The prosecutor's case began with the surveillance footage. The image of Karen dragging Lila to the shed played on a courtroom screen, every frame like a dagger through the room's composure. Then came the emails, the ones detailing how the HOA handled unfit residents, calling disabled children liabilities, and aesthetic threats. And then came the envelope, the anonymous one Amelia's lawyer received a week prior. He opened it in court, hand steady, voice calm. Inside, 6 photos, all of children. All in different settings, all locked in sheds, cages, or underground spaces. All time-stamped. "We were never the first," Amelia whispered. The prosecutor flipped the final photo onto the table. It was of a girl named Zoe, age 11, missing since 2021. Her mother lived in Rosewood Creek. The case had gone cold. No one had ever questioned Karen. She was the one who organized the search parties. Now, it was clear why they never found her. The court erupted in gasps. Karen's face twitched. For the first time, her mask cracked. The judge called for order. Amelia testified last. Her voice was hoarse but steady. She told the court how her daughter disappeared. The gaslighting, the cold silence of neighbors, the fake bones planted in the shed, the fire, the ash, the absolute collapse of her world. And then, through tears, she told them what mattered most. She's alive. Despite all of it, my daughter lives, and I'll make sure Karen never breathes free air again. Lila did not appear in court. Doctors said the psychological damage was still too deep. But a letter from her, read aloud by the attorney, silenced the room like a prayer. She said I cried too much. But I cried because I was hurting, not because I was weak. She tried to make me disappear. But I remember everything, even the dark. And I want her to live in that dark now, forever. The jury took just 94 minutes. Guilty on all counts: child abuse, attempted murder, kidnapping, arson, conspiracy, fraud, obstruction, and more. Karen Withers was sentenced to 12 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. As the sentence was read, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at Amelia and smiled. "You think this ends with me?" she whispered across the aisle. But it didn't end. Not yet. In the weeks following the trial, investigations into the Rosewood HOA exploded across the country. Federal agents raided the HOA offices, hidden camera systems, forged documents, secret financial kickbacks tied to property seizures, home violations, and discriminatory eviction campaigns. 6 board members were arrested. 3 resigned in shame. 1 took their own life. The entire neighborhood fell under federal oversight. For the first time, people spoke freely. Neighbors apologized to Amelia. Some cried. Others confessed. Many left. But one stayed. Bethany, who had once lived in fear, came to Amelia with something extraordinary: a storage locker key. She had been blackmailed by Karen years ago, but she'd saved everything: paper trails, audio recordings, names. In that locker was a map, a detailed list of HOA neighborhoods across 3 states. Each one had corrective programs initiated by Karen. Children removed, mothers shamed into silence, court cases buried in paperwork. Karen hadn't just been a monster in Rosewood. She'd been part of a machine. Lila slowly healed, not all at once. There were nightmares, panic attacks, days when she refused to go outside. But therapy helped. Her mother's presence helped more. Jacob returned, quietly one evening 6 months later. He left a small paper crane on the front porch and rang the bell. When Amelia opened the door, he didn't say a word. He simply knelt before Lila, now in a new, shining titanium wheelchair, and said, "I'm sorry I couldn't stop her, but I'll never let anyone hurt you again." Lila nodded, and for the first time in nearly a year, she smiled. Amelia wrote a book, Ashes Don't Lie: How My Daughter Survived the HOA from Hell. It debuted at #1. Talk shows called. Documentaries aired. Netflix signed a limited series deal. But none of that mattered to her. What mattered was one morning, 8 months after the fire, Lila wheeled herself to the mailbox alone and opened it without fear. Amelia watched from the porch. She didn't say anything. She just let the wind wrap around her and carry away the memory of the flames. But then, 1 year to the day since Karen's sentencing, Amelia received another envelope. No return address. No stamp. Inside was a photo. Another shed. Another child. This time, time-stamped 4 days ago. The back of the photo read, "It wasn't just her. And it's not over." Kate, Amelia stared at the image. And then she stood,